I'm Danny Kelly. Simon Jordan is still here with us, and that music means that we've been joined now for the next 60 minutes by Spencer Oliver. What do you feel, Simon? Well, sorry, Spencer, when you hear that announcement these days?
I was going to ask you the same thing, so I saw the smile on your face. It was like you was reliving that a little bit there.
Actually, the bit that got me was you're from Barnet, so I want to know which football team you support.
Well, I was a Barnet boy, wasn't I? So I used to literally live.
You're a Tottenham fan.
But when I was,
so the answer is Tottenham.
No,
good. Well, that is the right answer.
I'm a Tottenham fan, but let me tell you the story just quickly.
Yeah.
So my mum, I was brought up across the road from the old Barnet ground. Do you remember the old Barnet ground?
No.
What do you mean?
What would I ever
Underhill, is it?
Didn't you?
Oh, well, before
yeah,
that.
Underhill, yeah.
Underhill,
yeah. So that's where my mother still lives, so there you go.
Okay. Well, all I remember is that there was, when I was in magazines before I made the elevation to sports broadcasting, there was a guy at EMAP, one of the biggest publishing companies in the country. He worked in the advertising department. He used to come in and say to me, "Give me a sold disc, what can you do about the pagination, all the rest of it?" But I could never take him seriously because I knew that at the weekends he was inside the B suit at Barnet.
Oh no!
He was the Barnet mascot. And he'd be saying to me, if we can get 200 grand for this double page spread, what do you think about moving that? And I'm saying, how's the B suit? That's all you can think of is how is the B suit.
And there I was thinking that Simon was inside that suit. There you go.
Yeah, no, time's a bit tall for the.
I wouldn't be running. Tony Cleanthos I've known for years, and I won't be running around in a B suit for him anymore.
Listen, let's address the not the elephant in the room, but we were all together at Wembley last week in the build-up to the unification fight between Usyk and Daniel Dubois. A fight that's now overshadowed by what happened before, and I guess the fallout afterwards. Spencer, I'm going to give you the chance to come in off your long run-up here. I don't know what you do, and I don't, what professional boxers are going through in the hours before they get into that squared circle that I would never do, okay? Yeah. For no amount of money, actually. Mm. So what did you make? We'll talk about the fight. I really will talk about the fight. What did you make about the preparation that Daniel Dubois had? We talked to him briefly before match, but that's nothing. It's the hours before the fight that's become the controversy.
Yeah, very unusual. It's the first I've ever heard of it, if I'm totally honest. We had Don Charles in, didn't we, in a week, and Don was saying, look, it was not a party, it was a gathering, and we'd done that for the Anthony Joshua fight, and it worked for us. So I sort of understand it from their side for that, but I think this gathering seemed to be a lot bigger than the one for the Anthony Joshua one. And look, speaking as a fighter or an ex-fighter, that's not ideal preparation. You need focus, tunnel vision. You're going over, your game plan, what can happen in the fight, and certain situations arise, how you correct those.
Can you do that and relax at the same time? I mean, by relax, I don't mean, lay on a chaise longue or something, but you know what I mean, don't you? You've got to keep... It's a tightrope, isn't it?
Absolutely. Listen, what works for some, what doesn't work for others. But look, when you're talking about, there's relaxing and relaxing, isn't there? And I mean, when you're going into a fight of that magnitude, 90,000 people for the undisputed world heavyweight title, that's not ideal preparation for me. But like I say, Don says that worked before, so they thought that this was going to be good. Daniel's like no other fighter, by the way. Daniel sort of thinks differently, ticks differently. We'll get into it a little bit later. His father is very instrumental in that kid's career. Very, very instrumental.
Well, look,
influential.
In the interest of balance, as they say on some radio stations, I don't even know what that means. Don Charles, Daniel's trainer, was in the studio this week. Presumably you were, and explained from his point of view what occurred before the fight.
Let's retract. Let's replace the word party with gathering. It was a gathering. Okay. Right. The same gathering we used for the prep on fight day for the AJ fight. A lot was made of the ring walk when Daniel walked out in Wembley, 96,000 people. A lot was made of the
Anthony Joshua fight.
Correct, yeah. And the energy that it was fired up.
It was.
That gathering at the home, the same home, was taken to the dressing room. Some of the Daniel's friends and his father's friends were in the dressing room for the AJ dress for the fight. That energy is what gave birth to the energy that everybody witnessed in the ring walk, and we were victorious on that occasion.
So you tried to replicate it?
Correct. I think you would, put in the same position. If it worked for you the first time, it's highly likely you're going to replicate that. That's merely, there might have been more people granted for this second gathering, yeah? To get more energy. That would be the only thing. I'm a logical man. The only logical sense that why there was more people is to increase the volume, because it's the big, you're going to the AJ fight was big. This is even trumps it. I didn't think that was possible. The young man I saw in the dressing room warmed up. We had more than ample time. It was recorded. A lot of it was recorded, the warm up. And we cheered him up like you do. And he walked out like you do. And I didn't see anything where, he's not on it tonight.
Yeah.
Does that sound like justification after the event?
Well, like I said to you, they do things very, very differently in that camp, and his father's a big part of that. You know, Don Charles wouldn't be in control of gatherings or parties that are going on before that, that's for sure. You know, he's in control of his boxing life and what he's doing in his boxing. He turned up 90 minutes before he was going to make his ring walk. That's not ideal preparation, trust me. Oleksandr Usyk was there from about 6 o'clock. You know, you need time to get there. You need to walk into the stadium, feel the energy, go through all this stuff. Like I say,
okay, so that's 4 hours. Tell me, for the people listening, how do you what was Usyk doing in those 4 hours that Daniel didn't have the time to do?
Exactly what I was saying. He goes into his dressing room, he feels the dressing room, walks around. You know, it's sort of like you're taking in that moment. You're building up for this big occasion. You know, you're walking out in front of 90,000. You're looking to become undisputed. This is the pinnacle of sport we're talking about here. World heavyweight title champion. You know, this is so much on the line. You know, just financially, legacy, all of that stuff. So you need time to prepare for that. I've done it as a fighter myself. You go in there, you feel the dressing rooms, you take a walk around, you're looking at what's going on, you're looking at the crowd, the atmosphere, the feeling. You need all of that, you know, and then you've got to go back and you'll go over stuff. You'll be sitting there with your trainer talking over stuff. Like, it's all about preparation. Like, if you're coming into work today, Danny, and you come in and you walk in
straight out to the thin ice now, here we go.
Yeah, no, but like, if you walk in and you walk in, let's just say like 10, 15 minutes before you're going on air, you're all a little bit flustered, aren't you? This guy's different. Like, he knows what he's doing. He's on the ball, like, unbelievable. But what I'm saying is you're a little bit flustered because of preparation is key in everything. You know, and I think that
there must be a reason why the world's best heavyweights feels the necessity to be there.
There's the nail and bang on the head.
And the same argument was run. I mean, we mustn't lose sight of the fact that Oleksandr Usyk is the best heavyweight in the world by a country mile. Yeah. And none of this really detracts from the brilliance that he brought into the ring. What it does, it makes you question.
Well, we're going to talk about the fight in the next section.
Yeah, about the validity of some of the thinking. I mean, Anthony Joshua, a lot was made of Anthony Joshua's getting late to the arena and his lack of feeling about the preparation was right. It cannot be good for a fighter to be distracted by a Mardi Gras going on in his house. It cannot be.
So, for a simple thing, Spencer, how long does it take to get your hands wrapped for a top fight?
Great question, and I'm glad you've asked me that question because that's
where the big money comes this way.
Absolutely. Listen, that can take up to, if you're getting your hands right and they don't feel right, you want to put your gloves on, you try your gloves, you go, I don't like this, it doesn't feel right, you might have to re-wrap them again. That can take 45 minutes to an hour to wrap your hands. What I'm saying is, so if you're burning into your 90 minutes, you turn up to the stadium 90 minutes before, yeah, and then you've got to get to your dressing room, you've got to go out there, you've got to have that feeling. Now all of a sudden we've got 60 minutes, so how do you warm up?
You have to warm up then.
The warming up's going to take you at least half an hour. At least half an hour preparation.
People think they do the ring walk and then you start the boxing. No. That's nonsense. You couldn't do it at that level.
I also think, and we think this, and we step through this particular narrative very carefully, I think the neurological programming of Daniel Dubois is very different to it is to other fighters.
Correct.
And I think walking into an auditorium where you want an entourage that, by the way, it was a party, not a gathering. Don Charles is being very diplomatic because he probably has to be. Sure. And I understand the reasons why. But when you've got an entourage...
I've seen the film. I've been to less parties than that.
You can't have a fighter going into an auditorium with an entourage coming in behind him and then being pulled back into the middle of this entourage because the father is suggesting that if he doesn't let the entourage in, he's not going to fight. That sort of stuff can't be going on. It's a distraction, specifically for someone programmed the way Daniel is. Now, none of this, I think, really means that Daniel Dubois would have won this fight, but it provides an interest. And I was the one that brought the story to the fore because I was the one that was privy to certain information. But at no point should any of this take away from the excellence of Oleksandr Usyk.
And that's what we'll discuss next here on Kelly and Jordan on talkSPORT, the actual fight itself. Because, of course, lots of people's preparations haven't been perfect, but they still have to go into the ring. And we'll talk about another sensational performance by a man who, well, all the boxing experts I talked to at Wembley, they're all saying, well, it can't go on forever and ever, can it? Of course, it can't. I know that. It can't. But it doesn't show much sign of waning just yet. That's next here on talkSPORT. Now, Spencer, I rarely get a chance to show off on the radio, so here. Oh, Simon's looking like I'm all showing off. Listen, earlier on we were speaking to Eric Bielderman about the situation where Lyon are taking legal action to try and get out of that contract they signed with Nottingham Forest to sign the goalkeeper Matt Turner. And I suggested that Turner was being brought in there not as a second choice goalkeeper, but because Lyon, strapped for cash, would want to get rid of Lucas Perry, their brilliant goalkeeper, Brazilian, and just perfect for the Premier League because he's huge. Here's some breaking news for you. Olympic Lyonnais goalkeeper Lucas Perry, who has 3 years left in his contract, is expected to join Leeds for 16 million euros initially. Perry is due to fly in this afternoon to Paderborn, Germany, where Leeds are currently on a training camp. So that makes perfect sense to me. And I presume that the problem with Turner will go away as well. Yeah. Meanwhile, I should tell you this, that Manchester United have made fresh contact with Aston Villa for Ollie Watkins. talkSPORT understands the Red Devils identified Watkins as a target in their search for a new number 9, but any move is likely to depend on selling players first. Villa, and this is interesting, who have themselves shown interest in Alejandro Garnacho, value Watkins at £60 million. Whoa. Okay, thank you very much. All of that from this. Listen, we'll get on to some of all the controversies, but overall the fight, Usyk dominated. Is that fair to say, Spencer? Am I using the right language in boxing terms? There was only ever one winner from the start. I couldn't see anything else from just watching the fight. Absolutely,
yeah, he dominated. That's a fair assessment. I think that what we recognised was that Daniel just wasn't good enough, and we talked about all this stuff going on in the background, you know, the build up to the fight, etc., etc.
Then the bell goes,
and that doesn't help. Of course, it doesn't. When the bell goes, you know, you got to go out there and you deliver like that, you know, and you would soon recognise from the opening bell, I think it's fair to say, Simon, as soon as Usyk started getting that jab together, he was controlling the space. You know, he was upping the tempo when he wanted to up the tempo. He was going on the back foot when he wanted to go on the back foot. There was a lot of talk about, you know, that Daniel pushing him back early on and everything else. But even on the back foot, Oleksandr Usyk was in control. He was setting traps. You know, this guy went to another level. It's one of the career best performances. I know a lot of people talking about a poor performance by Daniel Dubois, but that was just the brilliance of Oleksandr Usyk. This guy is, you know, I think he'll go down as an all-time great for sure.
I won twice undisputed. Now, of course, it depends on the area you're doing that in.
3-time undisputed, if you include the cruiserweight
title. Yeah, I mean, I think his place in the pantheon is already pretty well established. And you know, they can't find anybody to not just to beat him, but really to compete with him. There've been one or two. Listen, of course, because of things that have happened in previous fights with Daniel Dubois, then came the accusation, if that's the right word, or certainly the inference that he had quit. There's no other way of putting it. For instance, here's Fabio Wardley Wardley, I keep calling him that, disagreeing with that assessment on Drive earlier.
I think there can be a level of realisation of I'm beaten here. He has my number. He has me figured out. The plan A is not working. Plan B and C isn't working. And don't get me wrong, some fighters choose to dig down and try and just swing for the fences and see if something comes off, and other fighters sit there and think, you know what, someone like Daniel as well, young, still got a lot of talent, a lot ahead of him, just goes, you know what, tonight's not my night, this isn't my fight, this is not the one for me. Almost not save myself for another day, not like he was in a grueling 12-round war, but he just goes, you know what, maybe this is not the one, go back to the drawing board and I'll restart from there. So I wouldn't like to put the word quit on him.
Yeah, I think it's really cruel to say to boxers that they quit. That's far too much, because they got in there in the first place. What did you make of the end of the fight, Simon? Because, you know, as Fabio was saying there, you can look to the future.
Well, it's interesting that Fabio characterises it that way, because we're talking about his whole assessment of the fight, about how it cannot be your night. You mean like you, Fabio, when you were fighting Justice Hooney 6 weeks ago, and it looked like it was not going to be your night at all when a punch from the gods came in and dealt with a fight that was going completely against you. I don't think that you can save yourself for another night when you're fighting for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world with all the belts on offer in the biggest fight in British boxing and the biggest fight in British boxing history. I don't think you can. It's a difficult one to call somebody a quitter. I think Daniel is programmed to accept the outcome in a different way than other fighters that might have bitten more down on their gum shield would have done.
Yeah, and I think that, look, they're gladiatorial fighters. When you get in there at any sort of level, like the word quitter and swallowed it, I don't like that because different fighters have different pain thresholds. And like Simon said there, different fighters, like Cole Froch is a great example as well, where they don't lose spirit, they don't lose heart, and they stick in there and they do that. But other fighters are different. They're more sensitive. They're, and it's not about swallowing it. I think it was about... we're talking about the first 4 rounds there where Oleksandr Usyk was just chipping away and he was getting more and more success, and Daniel recognised that he just weren't good enough, and he was at that stage. He got knocked down the first time, and the second time was a heavy knockdown, and he's down there. And then the question is, could he have got up? Yeah, of course he could have probably got up, because he got up after the 10 count, and he walked straight over to his corner. But he probably recognised at that stage, I'm not good enough. I'm just going to get up, and it's only going to go one way. So I totally understand it, but the word swallowed and quit is a wrong word to use, I think, because these guys are gladiatorial and they get in there and they give it their all. And Daniel done it, and it just wasn't good enough.
I mean, every person is different, but in moments of adversity, what goes through? Does anything go through your mind, Spencer, or is it just pure instinct? Whether you're going to keep going or you're going to say, I'm losing this fight. I mean, try and think back into your own time in that ring.
I'm already there. I totally understand it. There's, like I say, different fighters have got different pain thresholds, and different fighters have got different mental approaches about it. Like, so I'm the type of fighter that go, you got to pin me down to the floor to get me out there, and effectively that's what happened. I got carried out, and I ended up in a 2-week coma because that's where I was at, and that was like sort of my mindset.
Welcome back, Spencer.
Absolutely, but what I'm saying is, different fighters they think differently, and I think so. That's where you're at with it. But you go, when you got the undisputed world heavyweight title on the line, for me, my mindset is like, I'm getting up and I'm going to give it another go, because one shot can turn it around, and that's sort of the way that you think.
But I also think, though, to assess the fight in the briefest of times, I think that Daniel's psychological approach to the fight was wrong in the first. I liked him in the first round. I actually thought the first round, up until the point he gets Usyk in the corner and does nothing with him, which is the one place that you want Oleksandr Usyk. The one place that Oleksandr Usyk doesn't go is get himself put in a corner, and Daniel didn't let his hands go, and from that moment I felt worried for Daniel, because I thought the very thing that Daniel was going to do was prepared to take a risk and prepared to let his hands go, because the one way he could win that fight was doing that, and he didn't want to. And that told me something, and that might be to do with the preparation, which is why he and I made such a song and dance and a dog and pony show about why he wasn't prepared for this fight in the right way. But part of me, and it's not my right to say it, but I'm relatively bold and stupid in equal measure, I do think there is an element of a gag reflex in Daniel that enabled him to prepare to accept the defeat. Now, it isn't Roberto Duran against Sugar Ray Leonard. We know that. And it isn't potentially Ben Whittaker against Liam Cameron. But there is a kind of fighter that doesn't know he's beaten. And Daniel, I felt that Daniel was prepared to accept the defeat.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, that's a great assessment, and I think that, look, when you're looking at this and you're looking at that side of it, you go, like, Don Charles, by the way, had a game plan. I knew that game plan before they went in there, because I was in the gym in the weeks build up to that.
Right.
And they said, listen, and that's right. And I said to Simon, if they can implement this game plan in there, we've got a real fight, because they knew where it went right and wrong. When the bell rings, Don Charles is no longer a part of that, right? So Don Charles is a great fight trainer, and he had a great game plan. Daniel went in there, and Simon's right. The game plan was working. He got him backed up. He got him where he needs to be. He imposed his physical strength. Lennox Lewis talks about that as well. He said, when I boxed Evander Holyfield, I needed to impose my physical strength, my attributes, and then let my hands go when he was punching. Daniel done all of that, and then the final bit, the final hurdle, he never let his hands go. Why not? Because he didn't have confidence in his own ability. And I think that goes back to maybe revert back to what you know, back from the last fight. And he got him there, and you go, right, Daniel, let's go. Let your hands go. And he didn't do it.
Even if you take one on the way in, you signal intent. You signal that you mean what you said you were going to do, and this is what you're going to do.
Here's a question for you. Following our discussion of just how superior Usyk was to Daniel Dubois, I'm going to ask you, obviously, what's next for Daniel Dubois, but Spencer Oliver, an equally, I think, pertinent question is, what's next for Oleksandr Usyk? because they're running out of people to put in front of him for the second time.
Well, they've run out of people to put in front of him, haven't they? Because everyone they put in front of him, every leading contender, he's beaten twice. So
it's extraordinary, isn't it?
So you go, where does this guy now find the motivation to continue boxing? Because he could sail off into the sunset and he'll go down in history as one of, if not the best to ever do it.
I guess the counter-argument to that is if he's still in the condition he appeared to be in northwest London recently, he can probably put another £150 million in his bank with 2 or 3 big fights.
I totally agree with that, but at the risk of risking your legacy and your place in history, and you go like, how much money do you need? And I think, look, where Oleksandr Usyk finds a motivation, and he talked about this through the week actually, is through his people, through what his country's going through, giving them hope, leadership and all that sort of stuff. And I understand that, he's a man, he's something much bigger outside of boxing. That's what makes him so special. When we talk about Muhammad Ali and how good he was, and a lot of fighters around that era, I think we heard George Foreman saying it, and we heard Joe Frazier saying it, saying he wasn't the greatest to ever box in the ring, but he was the greatest sportsman, the greatest person because of what he stood up outside the ring.
Sure.
Alexander's sort of gone down that road. And how ironic, by the way, that Oleksandr Usyk and Muhammad Ali were both born on January the 17th. They were both the same height. They had both the same reach, and they both achieved what they've achieved.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you asked Oleksandr Usyk, do you want to be a representative for your country's travails? Of course, before the war, he just said no, but because who wants to be carrying around that with you? But now, whether he likes it or not, he is very much that. Incidentally, I noticed how very polite, but also very stern the security were at Wembley the other day, because, of course, Usyk is the second most important Ukrainian person on the planet. They were being very, very careful about him.
It'd be fascinating to see where the money is for these fights, because the scale of earnings from the Dubois fight would have been nowhere near what they've earned previously, because the Saudis weren't at the table. You look at the fights that are there, where are they going to be? I mean, Joe Parker may get his shot. Possibly not, because he'll vacate the WBO. But you say, he can do 2 or 3 fights, so you can make another 150 million quid. I'm not sure that. I'm not sure that's right.
And I think also at this stage of his career, because he's in the twilight of his career, he's 38 years of age, and there will be wear and tear there. At some point he's going to look at that and go,
even if he's not in the ring, it's inspiring, isn't it?
Yes, it's all the training that goes into that, the training camps, etc. The fighting really is the easy part, to what you put your body, the grueling part you put your body through in the build up to that, because the hard work is done before the first bell rings. Yeah, that 45 minutes that you're in the ring, or the 36 minutes of fighting that you're in the ring, you look at that and go, yeah, that is difficult and it's grueling. But what you go through before that, trust me, with the early morning runs and the sparring and all that, that's where the wear and tear is done. So for me, I think Usyk is 1 and out. He's going to go one more and he'll be done, that's for sure.
Who the hell is that going to be?
Well, me and Simon had the guy that we would like to see on, and I think it's the guy that deserves the opportunity, and that's Joseph Parker. I think he's rebuilt. He's a former world champion, and he deserves that opportunity, because he's in that. We were talking about this, Simon, weren't we? He's in that no man's land at the moment where he doesn't even know what's going on. He's come off the victory over Deontay Wilder and Zhele Zhang, the two danger men of the division. He's won both of those. He's put himself in the position. And when we asked him the question on Talk Boxing, the answer was, I really don't know what's happening. Yeah. And he is the WBO interim world champion, so that's next in line,
the thing for him is that he's in the right place with Frank.
Yeah.
Frank Warren engineers best outcomes.
I agree.
Look at Anthony Yarde getting another world title shot.
Yeah.
Or it's not a world title shot, but world title shot, isn't he, against Benavidez. Yeah. So you look at that and Frank will orchestrate an outcome. But Joseph Parker is an unfortunate circumstance, because he was supposed to fight Daniel Dubois in January, doesn't fight Daniel Dubois, ends up fighting Martin Bakoli, which advanced him nowhere, and sits in limbo waiting for an opportunity.
Well, here's the interesting one for me, because of the situation of these belts and whether they'll fragment or not. Now, next in line for the WBO title is Joseph Parker. Yeah. We believe that title may become vacant.
For the IBF.
So Derek Chisora's in line for the IBF. But talking about this...
Bakoli for the WBC.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you got Cabiel there for the WBC as well, who's the interim champion. So where I'm going with this, Danny, is you go... Moses Atoma is number 1 WBO there as well. This is the new kid on the block, the hot shot. We could find ourselves in a situation, and I don't know where Frank would be on this one, whether he'd feel that it's time for Moses to go or not, because we know how great this kid's going to be, and Frank is the best at engineering those and directing them and taking the right fights at the right time. But we could find ourselves in a situation where we get Joseph Parker for Moses Atoma for the vacant title, which would be absolutely
I get
insane.
The impression that Frank might quite fancy that.
Yeah, yeah.
Meanwhile, Daniel Dubois, there's a whole raft of people. AJ is one of them. Tyson Fury's another. Who will come back, I presume, after he's finished filming his latest TV
Netflix,
series.
Yeah.
Look, this is not the bum of the month club, but we're building up huge fights here, possibly taking place in football stadiums between, let's call it what it is, it's the victims of Usyk club. Why do people, help me with this, why do people still want to see these people fight each other?
I'll tell you why, because we are very, very blessed, right? When we look back on this, when we're going to call these the good old days, in 10, 15 years' time, we remember the good old days when the best fought the best, and we never had that for years.
Sure.
You know, you speak to Frank Warren, you speak to Eddie Hearn, and them guys, the politics of boxing didn't allow those to get the big fights on, and we missed certain fights of certain eras. We're not getting that now with the investment of Saudi Arabia and Riyadh season and all that, you know, I think, and the ring, you know, we are now getting these fights. So everyone is fighting everyone. And like you talk about, you know, a lot of people saying, oh, what, it's a battle of the losers club. No, we're talking about one guy of brilliance that we're talking about, not just the best of this generation, but the best of all time. Oleksandr Usyk now has put himself in that argument, Simon, where you go, was he better than Muhammad Ali?
Course,
was he better than George Foreman? Like, he has put himself in that argument.
In such a rarefied air at this moment in time. It's like I went down to Ipswich to watch Fabio fight Justice Hooney in a packed Ipswich Town Stadium. And they're at this level now. You've got fighters, the intrigue and the energy and the juice around boxing is ultimately because Frank Warren opened the door to Saudi and to Turkey, Al-Sheikh. Everyone's walked through it. It's raised the level. It'll come back down again economically because it can't sustain without Saudi money. It'll find its own level again. But the levels are there. And now the interesting thing for Daniel Dubois, to answer your question, is he can't drop down to fight, with respect, Fabio Wardley or other fighters that are at British level aspiring to go up to a higher level. He probably has to have to go in there with another live one inside the top 10, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know that Fabio's inside the top 10, but I'm talking about someone like a Caballel or someone of that nature.
Yeah, like that's where you would suspect he goes. And it's interesting, actually, Big Tyson Fury, who will be coming back in 2026, he says, you know, I'd welcome a fight with Daniel Dubois. I'd actually have him up here training with me. But, you know, that's the sort of fight now where you go, Simon's right with what he says. Daniel Dubois now is in his prime. He is a former world champion. He's at elite level. He's 27 years of age. And what we saw from the defeat from Usyk the first time is the kid did go back to the drawing board, worked very well, come back bigger, better, stronger. Can he do it again? Sometimes these losses can mould a fighter.
Sure.
And you go, what about a fight with someone like him and Tyson Fury? That is a fight that is sell, because we're talking about fights here now that are commercially...
Yes.
You know, we're talking about that sort of revenue. They have to be commercially right. And I think that sort of fight, you know, we can see something like that. Or even with a rematch with Anthony Joshua, something like that to get yourself in line for a shot again. I think that, Simon, that's where we can sit.
Listen, let's draw the curtain down for this show at least on everything that went on at Wembley, because I want to talk a little bit about Eubank and Ben, and particularly I want to pay tribute to Josh Taylor, who's announced his retirement. A person who I don't think ever got the credit because of the way boxing was hidden in those days for what he achieved. We'll do that in the final 15 minutes of today's edition of White and Jordan with me, Danny Kelly. Yeah, back to the boxing. This Saturday sees a double header from both sides of the Atlantic, with British titles on the line as Ryan Garner, who we'll hear from in a little while, takes on Rhys Palotti. That's live from Bournemouth. And undisputed heavyweight champion Claressa Shields will defend her titles against two-weight champion Lanny Daniels in Detroit, live only on DAZN. Sign up to at DAZN.com/boxing.
Boxing update on talkSPORT with DAZN, the global home of boxing. Buy now at DAZN.com/boxing.
And we'll hear from Ryan Garner, who faces Rhys Palotti in Bournemouth in just a few minutes' time. But I wanted to take just a couple of minutes out here as Josh Taylor, has the former undisputed world champion, has said he's sadly necessary to announce his retirement on medical advice due to an ongoing eye injury. Just wanted to mention this because at the time, and we all see where boxing has gone to, but the time when Josh was taking on the very, very best in the world and making himself a great boxer, he was almost invisible, really invisible.
Yeah, it's a shame. He just missed that, didn't he? It was just on the sort of like the crossover period, if you like. And Josh Taylor, you know, he achieved more than most fighters have ever done. You know, the undisputed super lightweight champion, going over to America, beating Carlos Ramirez against all the odds, and you know, some of the great victories
Regis
Prograis, which, by the way, that was August 2019 at the O2 Arena. What an incredible fight! One of the best fights I'd witnessed live, actually. If you're looking for, you know, it tick all the boxes with the skill set and the heart, the grit, the determination, the courage that both of these characters, both of them showed. Josh Taylor will go down as one of the greatest fighters that we've produced, and maybe never got the accolades that he should have.
That's right.
Yeah, that's all I wanted to hear someone say, because otherwise people come and go out of this place without recognition. Now, as I say, Bournemouth at the weekend, a super featherweight showdown with European title and WBC international belt both on the line. Rhys Palotti will be in one corner, in the other Ryan Garner, and Ryan joins us now on the line. Good afternoon, Ryan.
Hello, mate. How are you?
Really, really good. Great to talk to you.
Some of the recent victories that you've had. Jimenez last time out for the European title. What a great performance that was. And it's a great opportunity for you, isn't it, going in here against the in-form Rhys Palotti?
Oh, it's a massive, massive opportunity. Do you know what I mean? Not many people get to fight for one of these titles, let alone fight for all three, the British, Commonwealth and European. So when I come through this Saturday night, the only thing next is world titles. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, against all the odds, by the way, as well. That you've done that, you sort of come up sort of out of nowhere, and you just, you've been put in there. You've been sort of like against the odds, and you come through every single time. And you've developed as a fighter. But Rhys Palotti, I just want to talk a little bit about him, your opponent, for people that won't know him. You look back to 2018, to that period, 2018 to 2021. He lost 4 of 5 fights there. It looked like his career was over. And now at the ripe old age of 34, he's had 6 wins on the bounce, and he's coming out of nowhere. Michael Gomez Jr. last time out, he won that in 7 rounds, and he's in the form of his life. And like you say, there's a lot on the line here for both of you guys.
Yeah, like I say, he's getting older, so a lot on the line. Like potentially of where he's older now, it might be the end for him if I beat him. And for me, obviously, I've got ambitions, I've got aims, so it could all pull that to a stop. Do you know what I mean? If I lose this Saturday, but I think with each fight, I'm getting better and better, mate. I think every time with every camp, like each fight, I've showed a little bit different stuff, and I've improved with each fight. And I think the same is going to happen this weekend. I feel like I've got better since that last fight again, and I just feel like I'm going to take it to another level again.
Ryan, listen, thank you for joining us, and as I always say to every boxer, good luck on Saturday. And I mean for both of them.
Be a good fight. Be a good fight.
And of course, thank you very much to Ryan Garner for joining us here on talkSPORT. As I say, takes on Rhys Palotti in Bournemouth at the weekend. Thank you, Spencer Oliver, for the last 40, 45, 50, 60 minutes, because I don't think we could have done without you. Thank you. And can you explain, other than my magnetic personality, why you're doing your first ever Friday show?
There are no other reasons.
So tomorrow here again, 10 o'clock till 1, Kelly and Jordan and Kelly. They said it couldn't be done, and yet somehow, perhaps from Saudi Arabia, the money has been found. We'll join us again tomorrow at 10 o'clock for more of the same.